Welcome to the story Behind the Glory by On3. And today we have the pleasure of chatting with Chris Lane, the owner of Chris Fitness. So let's dive in with our guest, Chris. Chris, how are you today?
Hey, doing well. How are you? Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. We were chatting before we got going, and I'd love for you to just sort of share with us where your journey began because it's been 15 plus years.
Sure. It probably began before the actual journey even began. So it's kind of, in my upbringing. My father is a world-renowned martial artist and a legend in that industry and in that respect. And I grew up in traditional martial arts. So where my friends were going to play, t-ball and little league and buddy league, I was getting picked up from school and spending my afternoons at a martial arts studio. I'd get there, do my homework, maybe get 5-10 bucks to go across the street and get something to eat and then come back, wait for my martial arts class, take class. Mom would pick me up, we'd come home, have dinner, I would go to bed. And that was kind of my weekday and my upbringing. um you know Fast forward to my eighth grade year, I kind of hit puberty. I was the big kid for a second. Now when I say I'm the big kid, I topped out at like 5'10" at the time, so it's not like I'm that tall, but I was tall for a moment where I was in my school. My friends who played basketball talked me into playing basketball, and ended up playing my first year of organized basketball ever, my eighth grade year. But fell in love with it. I shot two-handed, scored 2 points the whole year, but something about like, ooh, basketball, go inside the rim, I fell in love with. So again, kind of flash forward, and we'll bounce back and forth between the story. But I fell in love with basketball, continued my martial arts, and I know through my martial arts upbringing, um, not just the physical attributes, but the mental attributes, the work ethic, the mentality, the focus, the commitment, the loyalty, and trusting the process to the sport and development of skill. I was able to pick up basketball really quickly. Ended up earning a scholarship, and then it was through basketball breaking my ankle and spending more time with my strength and conditioning coach, being injured on the sideline, that I fell in love with athletics, sports performance, and traditional strength and conditioning, and then ultimately fitness and wellness, which is several different puddles that me as an independent contractor now dances within. And that's also a blessing and a curse, because when you love it all, it's like you spread yourself a little too thin sometimes. I think we can all relate when we wear all these different hats. So that's the short story of just how I started, how I became involved in athletics, more through martial arts, and then more through traditional sports, and then through injury, through adversity, discovered my love and passion, interest, intrigue, really at the time, for athlete strength and conditioning and sports performance. And now everything I do now is full time in fitness and wellness industry, and I've had focal points. Again, I've had a lot of different angles and categories, puddles, if you will, that I like to splash around in, because I do enjoy so much of it, from athlete development to youth performance to active aging, and anything in between, as well as, the nutrition and restorative therapy side of things. So from all angles. And ultimately, it's about custom programming for clients and helping people enrich their lives. Again, whether that's an athlete or an active aging client, if we can provide them an enriched life, a better quality of life, and help them achieve their goals, that's how we as coaches live vicariously through their successes, through them achieving their goals. And we spoke about this earlier. It's a passion industry. We didn't get into this industry necessarily to become rich. We very much appreciate, and we do our job in order to support our families, our loved ones, and stuff like that, to provide a living. And if we can be financially blessed and do that, and be blessed and fortunate enough to do a job that we love at the same time, then that's a great life, in my opinion.
Chris, let's go back to your early days. Tell me more about martial arts and the discipline that you learned, not only performing the sport, but also from your father and what you saw, as he, rose up the ranks.
Sure. He had already achieved, a legendary status at that point in time. So I mean, I was benefited from just learning from someone at that level. He So a lot of parents will come to me with, in the past, you probably experienced this too. It's like, hey, my son needs this training. I could provide this training to him, but because I'm his parent, he doesn't listen to me. Like, he needs to hear it from somebody else or whatever, he or she, whoever it may be. So it's like the kids, they won't listen to their parents, but they can receive the same information, advice, or training from someone else. But because that's them and different than their parent, they receive it and absorb it. I didn't experience that from my father. So whenever we're at the studio at the dojo, we're in uniform. It was a very solid line. I didn't see my dad. I saw Master Lane, Sensei Lane, Danny, my father, um, and the older that I've got, the more involved I got into coaching, becoming a coach and trainer and correspondent, consultant, mentor to all of my clients and athletes. The more I see myself, the more that I feel like I've absorbed from him. He was brilliant in learning how to relate, coach with positive reinforcement. Um, to provide tough love when it was earned, when it was necessary, and relate and grow relationships with each one of his students. So I still have people today, I'm still in the area, in my tri-state area of my upbringing. It's where my home base is, as fortunate as I am to travel and get out of here, but it's still home. But I still have people come up to, hey, I had to share these amazing individual stories that they had with my father. When it's like, hey, I took karate from your dad. I took karate from your dad. And it's all these just great stories that I always hear. Before that, my father was a very high level police detective. So sometimes I get stories from that angle, and we could have a whole podcast just on my father and his. It seems like he's had so many lives inside his one epic lifetime where he served so many roles. It almost seems like a movie, like a Forrest Gump movie with all these different stages in his own story. But it's great that I've absorbed what I was able to from him unknowingly at the time or whatever. And so as I've gotten older through coaching, through fatherhood, just being an adult, and the you back to your original question, it was the discipline, the integrity, the loyalty, the respect, the work ethic, the trusting of the process, um, the respect to my elders, being an open mind, being a sponge and absorbing as much as you can from as many different people as you can. I have to give credit to martial arts for training me to do that at a very early age. So I've benefited from that training. Again, there's all the physical attributes. Sure, there's speed, agility, proprioception, balance, focus, all those different things that you get from martial arts. But it was more the mental attributes that I have found myself most useful throughout the rest of my life and the different stages of my career in my life.
Do you have any poignant memories of your dad's positive reinforcement or giving you the tough love when you needed it most?
Um, Tough love, yes. So this is kind of a story of both of those. I was doing a hang on, let me let it come back to me here. I was in, I think, maybe a third or fourth grade talent show, and I would perform, martial arts. I would, like a weapons kata or something like that. Then I would kind of just some music and choreography, high energy, flashy and stuff. And keep in mind, this isn't modern day. This is back in the late 80s and 90s when martial arts was huge in the film industry. Chuck Norris, John Claude Van Damme, Steven Seagal. I mean, all the greatest martial arts films were filmed and released at that time. So this is when the world was buzzing with, salivating with martial arts. So with that in mind, that's, kind of the setting. So, I mean, I'm doing bow staff, katas and stuff like that, music playing. And then I end with a board breaking, series. So, there's four to five stations of boards, and I break one with a different technique on one. So I get to my very last one. Fast forward, get to my very last one, and it's a 3 board just reverse punch. The technique wasn't flashy itself, but it's the power breaking through all 3 boards. Me being a fourth grader, you know what I mean, at that age, I wound up threw my punch, nothing. I mean, basically the boards punched me. So reset, cleared my mind. He's like, okay, let's go again. So, hold the boards. I'm loaded up. Bam! I hit it. Boards punched me back. At that point in time, I'm getting embarrassed. My face is getting red and stuff like that. I'm starting to tear up. So Dad takes a breath. He's holding the boards, and this is what I see. Boards right here in front. So he lowers the boards, takes a breath, kind of leans in, calm face. He says, listen, so you're going to break these fucking boards right now. And this, for my father to drop, a well-timed F-bomb was unlike him. But when he did it, the message was received, and he just kind of gave me the eye of the tiger straight out of a movie scene. He looked at me, and you know what I mean? I came to, and, kind of had that scowl on my face. He held him up. He's like, let's go. He locked him out. And sure enough, man, I blasted through those. And that was kind of a light bulb epiphany moment of how you overcome adversity in life too. It's like, you run into the wall, but you go through things in life. And that's why it's called going through things. You don't hit things and stop and deflect. I think there's a lot of that. And this isn't to begin, insulting the current generation, but I think there's a lot of deflection that goes on in today's youth. Um, Parenting is different, this day and age is different, but me growing up, and I'm blessed to have grown up in that great generation where, you went through things. And if you didn't go through the first time, you got up, you dust yourself off, and you go through it again. And again, that's just kind of another life lesson, not knowing it at the time, but another life lesson I was able to kind of visualize and go back and relate to, that you go through things. You don't tread water in a situation, you ultimately go through it. So you only fail if you quit, attempting, but you attempt, you succeed, you go through it, and then you got another set of boards on the other side of that, I guess.
And as I understand it now, you're all the way up to a sixth degree black belt.
Yeah,
Um,
I more or less stopped participating in the traditionalities of it, but I'm still very involved in some of the administration, making appearances. I serve as my father's vice president of operations for his national and international affairs, and been to India and done black belt testing with Cynthia Rothrock, who's another big name in the martial arts industry. Anybody who knows martial arts, including martial arts film, knows Cynthia's name. But yeah, I've been able to work with her. Chuck Norris, actually, so to kind of back up, just to give a little more allure to or luster to my father. My dad was Mr. Norris's East Coast director of his UFAF, United Fighting Arts Federation branch of school, his company, his training style. That was one of his top black belts. Has done several different endorsement deals and stuff for him, and done stunt work and choreography in a few of his movies as well. We've visited him on his ranch in Texas. He's been here to our home whenever I was a child. That's a whole other story. But yeah, he used to visit and come in and sit down here at my father's school for the regional black belt testing whenever it would turn over once a year. So was able to kind of grow up and be around him, Uncle Chuck, as he was to me for a moment in time. But it's been a cool industry to kind of grow up in, and taking all that and be able to apply it and use it throughout life. And it's again more of the mental, the psychological attributes more than the physical through the different phases of my life as an athlete, as a coach, as a family man, as a father and husband.
yeah, and tell me more about what you've taken away from embracing the process, right, of going through all the different belts, that martial arts has taught you to life in general. Because so many in this generation that we're in are all about the end result. You've clearly learned the process. Tell me more about how that love for martial arts has really helped you, as a coach, as a trainer, to where you are now.
Sure, it's as a coach, like you said, everybody wants immediate gratification. Whether that's a like on Instagram or a PR on a bench press or whatever it may be, and anything in between. The process is just the time and experience and the reps and the commitment to your craft, to your sport, to your craft, to your skill, absorbing and learning that just takes to achieve different levels. Some people pick things up, quicker if you're an athlete. I'm not a natural athlete. I mean, I was able to train myself into being an athlete by maximizing what little ceiling I had, what little potential I had, but I was able to do great with what I had when it became to martial arts and then basketball. But I had to work for all of it. So I didn't. It wasn't so much that I had to be patient with it. that was my only pathway, was to trust the process and just trust that my effort, my work ethic, my commitment to improving on my craft and staying focused and locked in on it will continue to baby steps yield me results because it taught me that. Like what I put in, I was able to receive out. And I learned that at a very young age. So that was never a complex mathematical equation in my head. It was 1 + 1 = 2. Um, Time and effort into whatever the goal is equaled success. That makes sense. So I, I experienced that again going through different ranks in martial arts, from white belt all the way to black belt, and then my different advancements in degree. But that's just how the way it was. I didn't know it to be any different, so I automatically kind of download, absorbed, and experienced that as a kid, and so that's what automatically gets applied to anything. That quick, it's funny. So overnight success doesn't happen overnight. I think that is pretty true for everybody. That people will see you succeed, but they don't understand, how all of the work that went under. So it's like the tip of the iceberg, but you guys didn't see what all goes on down through here. You know what I mean? And that's what ultimately got it to the mountaintop. But yeah, it's all rooted in work ethic and committing and then trusting that the work that you're putting in will yield a result.
And it sounds like, part of your coaching philosophy is based on the effort that you put forth will directly correlate with the results you get out. How else would you describe your coaching style, for towards athletes?
On the programming side, I mean, so there's so many programs, so many exercises, so many progressions, regressions, all those different things. We can toss that all around. There's so many different correct paths to get from A to B for each individual person, whatever their goal is, and age, gender, pre-existing conditions, all those things, and it becomes a customized approach. The biggest thing for me, especially as I've matured in age and seasoned as a coach, is to develop the relationship with a client or athlete because you need their trust. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter how brilliant, how textbook perfect, exercise, physiologically sound a program is. If your client or athlete isn't buying into it, then the success of it's going to dwindle. Inversely, you could be a terrible program or have a crap program, but if you can get that athlete to trust you, to trust the process, to buy into the program, they're giving their full effort, then dare I say that program is that more effective than the other. Or dare I say a better coach, a lesser program is more effective overall than, a subpar coach and a brilliant program. So to me, it becomes about the relationship building, the trust, and then that equates into the athlete or client's buy-in of what you're doing on a particular day or particular phase, block, week, month, year, whatever it may be. So again, about the trust, the buy-in, which elevates the effort.
And how do you think your athletes and clients would describe you in terms of building those foundational, blocks of trust and the relationship?
Um, so social media is really misleading. So social media is about the likes and the views and the shares and all those things. So those are some of the novelty, um, you know, things that raise an eyebrow or turn a head or spark conversation, and whether it's an exercise, a training philosophy, or something like that. But we all know as coaches, the most effective training is about the entertainment value of watching paint dry. So building a strong, sound foundation of strength, conditioning, injury, or decreasing risk of injury, mobility, flexibility, awareness and understanding, education on nutrition, how it affects our body. Everybody wants to train themselves into optimal health, optimal shape, optimal performance, whatever it may be. But it's the lifestyle and the nutrition side of things that are just important or more important, dare I say, for overall health and for achieving or getting from A to B in the straightest line possible. That line's never straight. We know that. But I think so many people underestimate the lifestyle side of things. We may have an hour and a half workout, But it's the other, what, 23 hours, 22 and a half hours of the day, those lifestyle decisions that we make ultimately that are going to, you know, get us from A to B quickest based on how we're treating and restoring and healing and fueling our body. So I like to give you a little more direct answer, kind of an all inclusive approach. A lot of people when they come in like, oh yeah, I'm gonna work with Coach Chris today, and we're gonna do some cool, crazy, amazing Instagram, awesome, exercise or workout or whatever, and for the gram. And they sometimes get disappointed, but I kind of lead them. It's like, hey, I don't want you to be disappointed today. You have to earn your progression. So there's a time and a place for those. But the most effective training and by and large what we do within any session or any program or workout are the basics, because the basics are tried and true, and they grow and strengthen that foundation across the board for that athlete towards their goal. So yeah, it's I can be a bit boring at times, I can be a bit dynamic at times, but I think anything is a balance. It's a blend and a balance. And even if I have on rare occasion, I have an athlete that's doesn't mind doing some of the same things or the same lifts and stuff each time or whatever, they still, for entertainment value, you got to throw in something in there just to spice it up. So whether you're cooking a recipe and you a little bit of dash of that, a little bit of dash of that, if it becomes more engaging, if something becomes stagnant, then buy-in starts to decrease and productivity starts to decrease. So you have to keep things entertaining, especially in this day and age, in this generation of a very short little attention span. Sometimes you need little dashes or go off the beaten path for that. So um, uh, tried and true, cut from a more traditional strength and conditioning cloth, born under the barbell, so to speak, moving steel. But it's an amazing time to be in this industry with all of the great tools and equipment, especially that I utilize, and I'm able to have relationships with some of these companies that I actually provide programming and content for. BlazePod, Inertia Wave, Brute Force Training. There's a whole slew of them. But they're brilliant tools in a day and age that there's always still someone trying to turn a corner and throw some novelty item out there. Dare I say, like a shake weight or something like that, that I'm not a big fan of. No offense to anybody who is, but I take it upon myself to identify these tools. There's no one be all end all, tool in the shed, but there's a time and a place for all these tools, and a lot of them can be overlapped synergistically as well. And that's where uh, some excitement and increased buy-in can take place when you sprinkle those into the recipe at times.
I know you said earlier that so much of it is a lifestyle, right? The 23 hours you're not in the gym. Can you share with us a memory of being able to live vicariously through someone who underwent a great lifestyle change for the better, where because of an introduction, and work with you?
Sure. More than I can count, and this isn't necessarily it. So the more common is, like a weight loss transformation success story. I was at this weight and I lost this much weight and improved upon my body composition and dropped this much body fat, and I'm big and fit and strong. And there, so I've had those stories. Probably, and as proud as I am of them, because everybody struggle. I mean, your perception is your reality. So no matter if it's someone struggling with maybe 10 pounds of weight loss or 100 pounds of weight loss or anybody in between, that mountain is probably just as high to all of them. So with all respect to the successful weight loss transformations I've had, some of the best ones have been some who have come from addiction, who have been substance abuse, drugs, alcohol. That's where the biggest lifestyle transformations come from, because you're removing so much temptation and trying to replace it with a different addiction with health and wellness, and doing something productive and positive for yourself that's adding quality of life and length of life to your body per your time and effort involved within it. So those have probably been the biggest success stories for them and for myself, because we've, again, with respect to the weight loss clients, because we battle obesity and heart disease, diabetes, all of those things as well. But to see people literally that were maybe one more hit away from an overdose, being able to stop, shift gears, you know, uh, t- take a hard left or right to get off the path that they were on, and literally saved their life that day because they found something else to put their time and effort and focus on. Because they have those addictive personality traits, they were able to sever it from the things that were detrimental to their health, and instead reroute that and focus on things that are enhancing of their health and wellness.
And I'd love for you to tell me more. Have you been able to see the light bulb go off in one of those addictive personalities where they were able to rechannel right to health and wellness? Or was that really a progression over time that you couldn't pinpoint? Or did you really, or were you able to see someone really, sort of boom, buy in and and make that positive change?
Yeah, the couple of handfuls of those stories that I have with and everybody's unique and individual and how they respond. And these are psychological mental health cases as well. It's not that they're unable or incapable. It's just realigning and changing habits and routines. And you talked about the serotonin release, the dopamine release, and everybody wants a quick, easy fix. I've had some who have been able to just kind of transition immediately, just have life changing, effects to be able to just take my focus from here and put it right on here, and then be on a straight and narrow path. Most of them, though, it was a gradual thing, and it was several different attempts. We get 2, 3, 4 sessions under our belt, and those who struggle with substance abuse or addiction or whatever, they're very spontaneous. Motivation is very fleeting, so they'll be very motivated, but like, yeah, we're all in. We're going to go 5 days a week and do this and this and this. It's like, slow and steady wins the race here. But after that motivation leaves, is the commitment, still remaining. So they have a trouble with committing to those things, just for the same struggle that they have staying clean. They may get on a streak, going to AA meetings, staying sober, staying clean, and then they have, a setback. That's part of fitness, and that's part of life too. And I think to kind of relate, like, hey, it's okay to have a step back so long as you're able to take multiple steps forward. We just don't need to be taking more steps back than what we're taking forward. However, with those who struggle with substance abuse and especially drug addiction, that one step back could be their final step backwards off a cliff, and done either in prison, in the ground. It's a dubious step, to take back for them sometimes. But it's for the most part, it's been a process, and taking 2, 3, 4, as many attempts as it takes to get to them. But hey, you can only lead the horse to water. They have to want to do it for themselves. And as many success stories that I've had with those types, I've probably had almost as many that didn't succeed. That doesn't mean that they necessarily overdosed or went to this direction or whatever, but I gave my best attempt and then kind of left the door open. Hey, if you'd like to come back, let me know. A lot of those things I'll do for, I'll comp a rate, comp programming, offer online training, do different sessions and stuff like that, just because necessarily these people are struggling enough. A lot of them may not be able to hold down a job or have, the funds to pay for those things. So that's kind of more of my comped work, because I have a sensitivity. I lost a best friend that was my grade school best friend. We kind of went 2 different directions once we hit college, but when we were 25, he overdosed and passed away. And so I have a sensitivity to those people and the struggle they go through and the disease that they battle. I mean, it's not a choice that they want to tear their family apart, tear down their own health, break the law, and do all of those terrible things to themselves and to those people that love them around, that are surrounding them. So I attempt to offer them a solution if I can.
Tell me how you build the staff culture, at your facility, and how you get everyone on the same page, because not everyone agrees with that approach. How do you get everybody all pointed in the same direction when it comes to that gentle, but I'll call it that gentle approach, for lack of a better term?
I don't know that I'd even be fair to say that. I mean, it's very we're not abrasive, but it's very loud in your face. It's exciting. We want to get people excited about exercise. So for me and my individual client training, back to an earlier conversation, that's my thing. But how I manage previous staff that I've had, and I've been a fitness and wellness director in a 127,000 square foot state of the art facility. At corporate fitness, a 10,000 square foot fitness, wellness, and sports complex that was more private training, accessed by appointment only. So very large and small staffs and things in between. How how I manage them or how I grow and develop them. That's something that I was very passionate about at one point in time, is staff development, and it's lead by example. Like, you have to be out there on the training floor, coaching, doing things, having workshops, introducing them to do prototypes, to new tools, to new training concepts, and then putting them outside of their comfort zone and having them turn around and role play and do different activities to increase their working knowledge. We would take field trips and visit and go to different workshops and conferences. So I really just want them to experience, the buffet of what huge industry that fitness, health, wellness, lifestyle, nutrition, therapy, all of those different embodiments of our overall health and wellness have to offer. Because some of them may start off as personal trainers, they may end up in physical therapy, or they may end up into athlete strength and conditioning, or they may serve as an administrator or fitness and wellness director and management, managing their own club, or all of the above. So it's really about them experiencing things so they can find their pathway to what they're most passionate about. You found your industry, but within this industry, again, there's a lot of puddles. So how many puddles do you enjoy, jumping in the most or whatever? So it's just about offering them experiences and growing them as well.
What are what are some of the more memorable experiences that you have given your staff to open their eyes to the possibilities?
Um, Going back to Marshall University days, I really enjoyed. I think, and I years later, I get calls and text messages back from my former staff who are now super successful in their own right at their different jobs and careers, all within fitness and wellness. And I think, not to speak for myself, but I guess to relay what they've shared with me, we used to have a biweekly personal trainer meeting, and we would alternate, so that's 2 meetings a month. We would alternate between more of a sit down conference presentation type meeting, talking about um, uh, nutrition or linear periodization or any number of things, programming that we could do more in an more traditional educational presentation conference room environment. And then we would go onto the training floor, and I would lead, or I would have one of my staff, one of my other trainers or fitness class instructors, lead something that they were most comprehensive and fluent in. So whether it's someone that comes from a CrossFit realm, or a Muay Thai kickboxing, or athlete sports performance, or a Pilates, or a yoga, or an Olympic weightlifting, I would allow them to set up and lead a workshop on occasion. That way, it gave them opportunities to teach a large group and share their passion, as well as those of us who may have not had any experience ever within what they're great at, absorb something, from some quality coaching from a great, coach that was on our staff. That way, everybody was able to kind of show off and display their loves, and we could share that love. Because, man, even if you're passionate about underwater basket weaving, it's not my interest. But if you're batshit crazy passionate about it, then I dig it. I could sit there and just yeah, no, tell me more about it. You know what I mean? I'm all ears, because I dig it. I love it. Anybody who's passionate about anything. So it gave them an opportunity to show their passion and to light up, and ability to kind of speak into a large room and share with a group and things. So again, it got people outside of their comfort zone. So I think those efforts through myself as a manager and administrator allowed everybody to spotlight themselves. Then, as well as me being on the fitness floor daily, leading by example, setting the tone, growing the culture, raising the standard, and us as a team, my team that I had there, just I mean, we were rock stars. It was a really great point in time in my career when I was an administrator manager of those things, even though I was coaching at the same time. Super duper loved, and will never forget my rock star staff, who are all rock stars in their own individual realms today. But that's feedback that they gave from me, so that's from them, from me.
Neat. I want to talk about another one of your passions that you touched on earlier. Your love for basketball, right? And you got a scholarship to college, and you broke your ankle. I want to ask a two-part question here. What was the moment when you broke your ankle, and what were you thinking when you realized, man, I can't play? And the second part is, how are you still continuing that passion for basketball today, and keeping yourself involved, with that love?
Sure. An injury came down on one of my teammates' feet during a drill during practice. I have long, flat feet, courtesy of my grandma, rest her soul or whatever. So I have these real long, flat, narrow feet. So I was prone to ankle injuries, despite my taping efforts and things like that. One of those things, impact injury or whatever happened. When it happened, I was crushed because at that time, it was my freshman year. At that time, I only knew basketball. That was really my first. Let me back up and I'll tell you this quick story just to kind of set the table for the rest of it. My first weightlifting experience wasn't until my freshman year in college with my team strength and conditioning coach. I was paired with an upperclassman, Jerome. Coach broke us down. It was just kind of trying to get some numbers on the board and hit some reps. But he said, "Hey, barbell bench press, 5 sets of 5, build to your heaviest 5." So we warm up and then we get broke up to our own individual benches. And, Jerome slaps a 45 on each side. He's a 6'8", the junior, 200 pounds plus. So he slaps a 45-pound plate on each side and, pops out, five, real light, easy reps for 135 pounds. He looks at me. He's like, "All right, man, what do you want?" I'm like, "I've never done this before." He's like, "What are you talking about? You never bench pressed before?" I was like, "Oh, man." He's like, "Well, man, slide under here and see what you get." So slide underneath the bench, grab barbell, we unrack, and I'm locked out. I'm pinned underneath the barbell. He has to pull it off of me. We rack it. And he looks at me and I look at him. I mean, I'm embarrassed, but I didn't know what I could do or whatever. I was used to punching and kicking, right? Not necessarily weightlifting. I finish out with like 85 pounds on the bar, like a 10 and a 5 each side for, 5 questionable reps for 5 sets. And that was my first weightlifting experience. But at that time, I mean, soon after that, I broke my ankle. But at that time, there was something about it that it posed a challenge. Then I became intrigued because I was never going to be a professional basketball player. I knew that. I mean, I kind of hit my potential by achieving my scholarship offers. But I became interested whenever I broke my ankle and being able to spend more time with my athletic trainers and strength coach from a medical red shirt and having being limited with my team. So I started to shadow and then assist and, just kind of watch and help and become more and more engaged and pick my strength coach's brain about athlete strength and conditioning. And it was intriguing because I was probably able to, even though it's subconsciously, but talking about it, I'm kind of realizing it now. It's probably trusting that process, going up through the ranks of martial arts, that I was able to see. Ooh, I'm at a white belt right now. I have all of this potential that I can, even though I'm not going to be a professional basketball player. I became interested on how to grow and develop other individuals' athletic performance to maximize their potential like I was able to. And I saw myself as that white belt, and I saw everybody else that I haven't been able to work with at that level too. So I think that's where the intrigue and interest came from, and then the experience just slowly started to build and grow my passion until it was obvious like this is what I was born to do, because I was able to then coach and instruct like my father had done, and all of those things I absorbed from him from a young age. And that's where I started to see those natural talents spill out, because I wasn't really natural talented about anything else. But because I absorbed so much from my father unknowingly at the time, that's where I became talented as far as relating and instructing and coaching, and then picking up knowledge and skill sets along the way to grow that skill set.
And I know that you've also had the opportunity to train some of the G League and NBA athletes, and share with us what we may not understand about the psyche and journeys of the G League athletes that you appreciate as a trainer.
Yeah, and that's kind of to the second part of your question. To my long-winded response was I'm able to kind of live vicariously through them. So, yeah, of course, I would have loved to have grown up and been an NBA basketball player and win championships and things like that. But I knew that wasn't going to be me. So I was realistic about that. But I think I also saw that opportunity as a basketball player. This is my chance to continue to be part of the game with not being an actual player, but being, a coach in developing the athletic performance of these players so that they who actually had that potential that I never had, that possibility, me to support and grow them and try to push them, to that ceiling and beyond it, as much as possible. So working with those, becoming involved in one of the top 10 high school prep academies in the nation, Huntington Prep Basketball. It's had an opportunity to work with countless 4 and 5 star high school athletes who have gone D1 and semi-pro and pro, and seeing all those guys, and whether it was someone coaching someone at the high school level and then making the starting lineup, or it was assisting someone or being part of someone's journey getting a Division I scholarship, or seeing those college players ultimately get drafted in the NBA. That's where I was able to live vicariously through them, because their successes were part of my own. Not that I was responsible for that, but I was able to at least be part of that journey because I'm the biggest cheerleader of those people. So being a basketball player and having such a huge love for basketball, and then working with them and being able to see them accomplish things that I can only dream of, I was the biggest fan in the corner. So it's great to still have a relationship and work with those guys in the off season, because I'm their biggest fans. But when we're in session, I'm not fanboyed out. You know what I mean? They're not the celebrities, stars and stuff like that. We're locked in. I mean, I still see them as a high school athlete that hasn't accomplished shit, in that moment in time. And I think me keeping it real with them and staying locked in despite their levels of success at different places in their career or whatever has been a great attribute to us continue to grow and develop our relationship and our friendship outside of coaching and playing as well.
Absolutely. Um, do you think that from your experience, those moving from college to pro, or at the different leagues of pro, um, do you witness a lot of the I don't want to call it a deeper passion, but a drive to make it right, if you will, because they don't have the spotlight on them necessarily just yet. And I'm curious if there's uh, you know, a deeper hunger that you've seen in some of those athletes to get there, right? Because they are right there and they're so close.
So the NBA finals are happening right now. I don't have any Well, Thomas Bryant, who plays for Denver Nuggets. He's not currently in the rotation, but he's on the team. He was just a workhorse. But what I want to focus on or mention are a lot of the players on the Miami Heat were no name D League and Euro League players who have had to go through that adversity, who had to travel through the fire and dig and grind for every single little bit of success they have just to have an opportunity to play in the NBA. Now they're able to showcase it on the biggest stage in the NBA finals. And that's the big difference in the Miami Heat team right now is their grit, their determination, their team camaraderie, their buy-in and trust in each other, because they're not the most talented team, but yet they weren't even expected to make the playoffs and landed as the 8th seed and have knocked off the entire Eastern Conference, challenges that they had to land themselves in the NBA finals. nobody gave them a shot in hell, to even make the playoffs, let alone, the NBA finals. So point being, those people that have had to punch through those boards that I about broke my hand on twice being in fourth grade, it hardens you, it sharpens you, and you become built for that moment. So when the lights are on, the pressure's on. It's like, man, it's just like another Tuesday night to me. I mean, because they've already been there and done that or whatever. So that pressure, that anxiety that comes in some of those moments or whatever, they're able to just kind of smother that and rise above more so than other people who've just kind of had a straight, narrow, easy pathway because of their God gifted, talents or athleticism. So that's great for them. Certainly wasn't my path. It wasn't a lot of the athletes' paths that I have, a couple side. But I think everybody at some point in time, you're not the best player on the team anymore as you can't continue to advance up the ranks or whatever. So you got to work a little bit harder. But man, once you succeed, that success is so much sweeter because you've had to sacrifice and work and grind and hustle and pray and um, just be resilient and trying to achieve. So whenever you do achieve that, I mean, it's a beautiful thing to see somebody reach that pinnacle and succeed and kind of take that breath, that exhale, because it makes it all worth it in that very moment. You know what I mean?
What are you still working at getting better at these days?
Um, wow. Consolidating. I think again, I mentioned a couple of times dancing in the puddles. I'm so interested and love so much of this industry or whatever. Me in my early 40s now, I'm now kind of consolidating. I'm actually trying to do a better job of time management, consolidating my efforts, and putting some more focused effort on one or two things that I'm most passionate about and growing those opportunities. So I've actually scaled down my live in set and my live services. So athlete strength and conditioning, personal training, nutrition, restorative therapies, things that, I'm at a place with a particular person, small group or team and doing, for that session, in live time. And kind of steering that, putting more and more time and growth and development to my online training platform, and getting most passionate about helping middle-aged men, 35 to 55 years old, do a health, fitness, wellness, and body transformation. So it's almost like a lifestyle overhaul. These professional men, dare I say, entrepreneurs, like yourself, myself, we put so much time and focus on growing and developing our careers. Many of us are family men, so we're juggling, our career, being a parent, being a husband, supporting our families and stuff like that. Um, Developing and growing our business ventures. We're in the fitness industry, so we're a little bit different animal because this is our injury. This is our industry where we never lose too far of a distance or track between our fitness. But most professionals, doctors, lawyers, regular business owners, entrepreneurs, they sacrifice their health and wellness, putting it on the back burner to focus on, the other priorities in life. And then pretty soon they turn around. It's like, man, I've been doing that for 10, 15, 20 years. I've reached a great level of success. My family's taken care of, my businesses are thriving, but my health is trash, physical and mental. I need to restore my own health and wellness so that I'm around to manage these things and to enjoy and experience these things, because a lot of us get into the habit when we love what we do, we're passionate about what we do. That line blurs when to check when to punch the clock for the day or whatever, and then we end up living to work instead of just working to live, because it's still just that it's work, but we're here to provide and spend time with our loved ones and our family and experience earth and life and all these memories that we can have with the people that we love. So that line gets a little dicey. So I'm most passionate in my current phase of my career about helping those men restore their health and wellness so they can be around long enough, have a higher quality of life, and appreciate the success that they've spent so much time working on, but in return have sabotaged, their own health and wellness. So giving them that back is something I'm very excited about.
Was there a particular reason that pushed you to want to, really focus on that, middle-aged men population?
I think turning 40 was one part of it. Another part was just realizing the opportunity to, because at the end of the day, it's about helping people. COVID year hitting, I think changed a lot of things or opened a lot of eyes. It certainly, lit a light bulb for me that I can serve and help more people remotely, virtually, online than I can in person. So I'll still always believe and probably always be most passionate about the magic that happens in a live setting. To be able to touch and feel and hear and absorb energy and just all of the influences that happen when just like we're talking here, virtually or online or whatever. We're face to face. I might be reaching out, grabbing it. You know what I mean? You might be holding the boards for me earlier in the session or whatever. So just that overall experience. But if I can reach out and help more people in a much more time efficient, effective manner through online and virtual coaching or whatever, that's a blessing to take advantage of that technology. That also allows me, again, as much as I love doing what I do daily, it allows me the freedom and flexibility and the financial security to spend more time with my family and travel and go and do with them as well, but without missing work. Because in a in an industry where you're in person, live setting, those are commission based opportunities. If you don't perform that session, turn that commission over, then that commission isn't earned. So even though I'll never give that up, I'm excited about where I'm at now, being able to do that more of a paid passion hobby, and then utilizing my online training, featuring my middle aged men's transformation program as my full time. But having the flexibility to do that anywhere we are in the world with my family.
And who are some of the mentors in your life that have really poured into you, um, and have really shaped this outlook?
We mentioned my father. I think that's an obvious one at this point. Just his coaching and uh, character building attributes that I absorbed from martial arts. My mom teaching me that people aren't going to help me more than I'm going to help myself. So she really put me in a position like, as a parent, I will help you as much as you're helping yourself. So it taught me to first try to teach myself how to fish, and then someone comes along. So that kind of fed into my work ethic and just problem solving, trying to figure things out on my own. The love and support that they've given me over my life and career and stuff like that has been overwhelming. So my parents, obviously. As far as professional mentors, Heather Smith, who was my first fitness and wellness boss at Marshall University, who took a chance on me, hired me as a personal trainer originally as a undergrad in college. John Hark, who is the director of strength and conditioning Olympic sports at Marshall University. Um, Melissa Bird, who is a dear friend, client, second mom, fellow hip hop head, just someone who overall gets me, and she's my people. She's a corporate defense attorney, so she's a brilliant mentor and had so many experiences, again, from being a parent and an attorney and just a professional person, and just so well rounded and educated. We're able to share a lot of things. Jane Bonneman, who was a corporate fitness and wellness director who I'd crossed paths with, who took me under my wing, who I had a particular light bulb moment when I left corporate fitness and started my own LLC, left corporate fitness to work for myself as an independent contractor. There's been quite a few. I'm scared I'm leaving somebody out. Um, my wife above all of them, um, because she's been my greatest supporter and cheerleader. And regardless of how fantastical my thoughts or ideas or ventures, have been, whether they made sense or not, um, she's been great about being my anchor and grounding me, and then great about being my rationality. But also at the end of the day, it's like, hey, if whether it makes sense to me, if something is pulling you, and even in your own mind, if it's not making sense to you, but something in your heart, in your stomach, in your mind, in the galaxy is pulling you, migrating you, pulling you into to do this, to go after this or whatever, then go do it. So she's been my greatest supporter and been the best mom, the best wife through all this process, through all of my different phases of career and how they've overlapped and stuff too. So without any of them, I'm, not the person that I am today, not the adult, not the father, not the husband, not the coach that I am. So I give all of that to them.
And you bring up a great point because in many ways you are an entrepreneur, right? And I think that sometimes the spouse of the entrepreneur gets forgotten about, right? And how critical that support is. Can you share more about that perspective of having a supportive spouse, allowing you to chase your dreams?
Yeah, that's actually one of the onboarding conversations I have with my men's transformation clients, because it's already going to be an uphill battle, trying to purge habits and change things, so but you got to have your support system. You're only going to be as successful with your support system because we're all going to fall back. So it's really important that, and super critical, vital for me, that I have the support of my wife, Jessica. She's again been in my corner, my biggest supporter and cheerleader since day one of all of this, and has allowed me to go chase these dreams. And sometimes I come back with my tail tucked between my legs, and she rubs my head, pats me on the back, says, "Baby, it's going to be okay. Get up and go again." And that's it. And I hop back up, she winds me up, and there I go again. And it's it's a shame that you don't hear more of those stories, that people don't have the experience like that I've been blessed to have. I actually just kind of posted something along those lines towards those thoughts on my social media right before we jumped on. But it's just, I pray people are able to experience, and God willing, have a lifetime of experience of having a peace of mind and a warm home filled with love, and a life full of just health and wellness to enjoy all of that. Unfortunately, you don't hear enough of that. I was lucky enough to land my wife, Jessica, and she, again, I can't give her credit enough for my success is due to, again, her, and that ultimately becomes our success together. So yeah, none of this happens without her, without some of her tough love. Like just like any great coach, she's been my coach also, grounding me, sometimes being my rational mind. And as I get caught up, and because of my passion wearing my heart on my sleeve, I sometimes get caught up and get a little sensitive and take things a little too personally sometimes. And she does a great job of cracking the whip and realigning or retraining my thought process when I need it. And she does a good job of recognizing when I need that too. So all credit is due to her, and bless her heart.
And what advice do you have for entrepreneurs, right? Who, maybe have lots of, dreams and ideas, through your successes. What advice would you share with them?
Well, I mean, it's going to sound cliche. Dream big, expect to fail often. You may fail 100 times, before you finally achieve what you're after, on that 101st time. Um, and be willing to adapt and overcome, even as trends change, as technology changes. Um, Being able to absorb and keep up with the curve, or ahead of the curve if you can, and promoting and being able to really just solve a problem. Um, Artificial intelligence is starting to come out big and heavy for all of us, or whatever. I just had a great conversation, about artificial intelligence being able to, well, you throw in some data, and that artificial intelligence can pop out a custom, nutrition program and exercise program and all that. It's like, yeah, but can they provide coaching? Can they provide mentorship and compassion and accountability and all those different things? So whoever you are in whatever industry you're in, so long as you can solve a burning problem that people struggle with, you're going to be successful. It's just a matter of putting it together and packaging it and putting it out there for people to see, in order to reel in, the people that you need to help. So if you're genuine and authentic about help people solve a real problem, a real life problem, I don't think you're due on the straight and narrow for success, but expect, failure to come. That's just part of the journey, but you only fail if you decide to give up. So if you're truly passionate about something, go after it, don't give up on it. But at the same time, I mean, you have day jobs and things like that. That's just to kind of keep the momentum forward, but never give up on your passion and dream. And it's okay if those passions and dreams change, just so long as you stay passionate, and hopefully you're blessed enough to do what you love to do.
I agree completely. Well, Chris, this has been, wonderful, and thank you so much for your time this afternoon.
Thank you so much for reaching out. I'm immediately a huge fan of you and your efforts. So total support to you. Let me know if there's anything that I can more do for you or your efforts and focus. You are an inspiration and motivation yourself. And thanks so much for choosing me to be on.
Terrific. I appreciate that, Chris. Many thanks.